Yeah.
Yep, but it's the same principle. You can make it, you can do it, you can, yep.
You can do
It
it.
says something.
All right.
I
Here we
believe
are
I could fly.
live, live on YouTube. We are reading Forgiveness in Jesus. And Michale, I'm going to turn it over to you to pray us in and get us started.
Okay, good morning, everyone. Happy Friday. Hope you all had a wonderful Thanksgiving. So we are reading Forgiveness in Jesus, the Meeting Place of A Course in Miracles and Christianity from Kenneth Wapnick, PhD. And I'll go ahead and pray us in. Forgive us our illusions, Father, and help us to accept our true relationship with you, in which there are no illusions and where none can ever enter. I forgot the rest. Would someone like to finish it for me?
Our holiness is yours. What can there be in us that needs forgiveness when yours is perfect? The sleep of forgetfulness is only the unwillingness to remember your forgiveness and your love. Let us not wander into temptation. The temptation of the Son of God is not your will. And let us receive only what you have given. And let us accept but this into the minds which you created and which you love. Amen.
Thank you, my sister Zolma. Thank you so much. So we ended on chapter 3, Forgiveness of Injustice, and the meaning of injustice and suffering. And we went over last week about Corrie ten Boom and her sister, and a book that I believe it was Bantam Publishing published in 1971. And they were in a Nazi concentration camp, and they were Christians, and they decided to see in their plot, this kind of terrible plot that they were in their experience, they decided to see the guards as really as their brothers, and that they were no different from the prisoners that were perceived as suffering. And they ended up being released, and they established it was let's see, recovery homes in Holland for displaced refugees, and for also the psychologically displaced Germans as well. So this was before the course, and so it was a beautiful kind of demonstration and experience on. It's an outside picture of an inner condition, but also to see the Christ within your brother and how you reverse figure and ground in that. So that was a really wonderful experience that Ken had written about in the book. So we're starting on page 86 in the 7th edition, and on the paragraph, see, that starts with, "This is not to deny that people experience physical and psychological pain." There, Lynn has it up. So I'll go ahead and start the reading. "This is not to deny that people experience physical and psychological pain, or that one should not minister to others at the level of their experienced need. A starving person should be fed, for example, a naked one clothed, medication offered those with physical or psychological pain, etc. But beyond this level of pain, another level is present as well. Our true pain comes from our mistaken interpretation of reality, not from what that reality is. It comes from the belief that we are children of the ego and this separated world of form, not children of God and his heaven. Thus, we cannot suffer at anyone's hands but our own, since we alone are responsible for our beliefs. Our mistaken belief about ourselves, not the external agent onto which we have projected the cause, is the source of our pain, which disappears when our minds are healed, as the Course emphasizes. It is your thoughts alone that cause you pain, Nothing external to your mind can hurt or injure you in any way. There is no cause beyond yourself that can reach down and bring oppression. No one but yourself affects you. There is nothing in the world that has the power to make you ill or sad or weak or frail. And that's from the workbook, lesson 190. I choose the joy of God instead of pain. So I'll just read the last small paragraph after that. Suffering is the effect of the belief in separation, which is the cause. Thus, whenever we choose to identify the cause of our suffering as external to us, be it another's attack, the cruel vagaries of fate, the injustices done to us in the past, or the attacks on our bodies, we call sickness, we are falling into the ego's trap of denying the true cause of our problems, the ego itself, by hiding it behind the projected causes of the world. So Ken is saying, which refers to magic, that it's okay to take, as long as you still think that you're here, as long as you still look in the mirror, and I see a Michale in the mirror, I see eyes in the mirror, I still have a belief in the separation. So it's okay to take a magic pill if I have a headache to help me with that. But the real true cause is coming always from the mind, and to step back and to look at that, ask for help, as we were kind of discussing before the class started, with the Holy Spirit and Jesus. And, yesterday was Thanksgiving, and I had a wonderful Thanksgiving, but it was a beautiful, as Ken would say, look at it as the experience as an opportunity for forgiveness. So I definitely had all my buttons pushed with my ex-husband, and yeah, I had to really forgive, and the past was definitely brought up, so it was a perfect opportunity for me to step back and look at that. And it makes me remember, I think it was in the 1970s or the 80s, I loved the singer Marvin Gaye, and he went to a party, like almost like a Thanksgiving party, and his father and him got into it. I remember he drove a Datsun because he was a really tall guy, and I was always surprised that he drove this cute Datsun sports car. And his dad shot him, and Marvin Gaye left this experience. So sometimes family gatherings, it's usually the past that is brought up, not the present, and we have to forgive. So um, Thanksgiving can bring up a lot of things, and it's a perfect opportunity to take a look at yourself, and you have to forgive because it's a mirror. It's an outside picture of an inner condition. So, and everything usually is being brought up to be healed. So it's like unpeeling the layers of the onion. You see it, you see it there. So, but we have to be gentle with ourselves, and also it's a process, so slow and steady, as Ken says, like the tortoise. So, would anyone like to comment on these two paragraphs here? And the course's lesson 190. I choose the joy of God instead of pain. I see Mickey's hand is up, so please go ahead, Mickey.
Yeah, I wanted to comment more about what you said than on the paragraph. You said it's a process, and especially in light of what we were talking about before the meeting started, that we all think that we should be able to read this course and go, aha, I'm not an ego, and poof, we're done. And it's a process. There might have been a couple of people here and there in the history of the world who just woke up one day, but they went through a lot of pain and suffering um, beforehand. And we have to be very kind and very gentle with ourselves. Otherwise, we're falling into the ego's trap again. We're falling, like it says right here in this paragraph, we're falling into the ego's trap of denying the true cause of our problems, which is that we can't see, we can't hear with these ears, and we can't see with these eyes. And the true cause of our problems is that we think we're in these bodies. But while we still get up in the mirror, like you said, Michale, when we get up in the morning and we look in the mirror and we see a person who we identify with a name and a body, we're going to have these problems. We're going to suffer. There are people who think they're perfectly happy hanging out in these bodies. And great, this course is not for them. Like Ken says in a lot of his workshops, if you think you're happy here, this course is not for you. This is for people who can see what believing in the ego causes. And it causes grief and suffering and loneliness and a feeling of separation. We don't even know what from. So it's a process. So thanks for that.
Thank you, Mickey. That was, like Deb says, beautifully shared. And yeah, it is a process, and like that's the beauty kind of Ken's teaching, is that he reminds us that we have to be gentle with ourselves, and that it's slow and steady. And as long as we still believe in separation, then you're going to have you need take the magic pills. We're not there yet, and you know, just people, you're going to get depressed. That's going to happen. You have to step back and look at it. And like Ken said in that class on pathways of forgiveness, he's said somebody was asking about suicide, and I mentioned this before, that and they were kind of depressed, and he said you just look at every day as you wake up being happy, because whatever experiences happen within that day, it's another opportunity for you for forgiveness. That's your goal for the whole day, is forgiveness. And it's like a rungs on the ladder, and then you can move up the rungs on the ladder. So I had to look at that at my Thanksgiving, because uh, I got my buttons pushed. So it was a beautiful opportunity for me to see how strong that ego was. And I was able, like Ken says, it's 100% hatred. And I was able to step back, but I did feel all the feelings of it. It went into a rage, but I wouldn't go into that. But I could feel it, and it wanted me to go into that, and I wouldn't. I just stayed as the observer on it. But two, on like magic, as long as we still believe in separation, this body needs foods. Breathing is magic. Ken says that just to be able to take a breath, that's believing in magic. Everything comes from a belief. So there's gut neurotransmitters in the gut, and there's a gut brain relationship. So as long as so on the level of magic, if somebody might be having some depression issues, it might be good for them to work on healing in this world of separation, healing their gut. And so you just go slow and steady process, like you brought up, Mickey, and you do the best you can every day with what you have. And it's good to also to go out in nature. Thich Nhat Hanh, the Vietnamese monk, always talked about that. And there's frequencies, vibrations in the planet. It's good to ground yourself. So all of these are helpful on the level of form. But the reality is, yes, it's all coming from the mind. So I see Lynn's hand is up. So please go ahead, Lynn.
Yeah, wow, what a great discussion this morning. And yes, speaking about uh, the idea of magic and mental health. And I was depressed for years, and I'm not going to go into all the stuff, but I was pretty pissed off, actually. Which I came finally to realize I was just pissed off about everything. And things that happened, I was trying so hard to be a good person, and it just seemed like the world was just against me. And I went through some really crazy stuff, which I'm not going to go into now either. But I was all trying to be spiritual, and I didn't actually, until I started studying the course, I didn't even actually realize I could just go to a doctor and say, I want to kill myself. And I mean, but I don't want to kill myself. Help me, and get actual help, and take antidepressants. I did take antidepressants, and mood elevators, and different things, experimented till found something that was able to help me level out my thinking, because I realized it's just like a starving person. You can't just bring a starving person in and say, okay, now be spiritual, but I'm not going to give you any food. You can just be spiritual and God will take care of it. No, you got to give that person food. You got to you got to help, you know get the body into a place, where a condition where you can actually uh, relax, chill, be joyful. Is not going to happen without some sort of intervention. And it isn't a lack of faith that says, I need to eat something. It's actually just taking care of, rendering unto Caesar what is Caesar's, rendering unto the body what it needs. And, I like I said, I didn't start taking antidepressants until after I had started studying A Course in Miracles. And a lot of people, I even had a teacher that said, I won't work with you if you're taking those. I'm like, well, I can't work with you if I don't. So, I realized that what I needed was you know, to take care of this thing in the world, so that it would no longer be uh, uh, an excuse for my ego to keep suffering. And so, after I had been, I don't know how long I took those antidepressants, probably 10 years or more. And, then just one day I'm just like, I'm feeling good. And I did, taper off and stop taking them. And I haven't thought about it since. But that, that's what I needed. So, we don't deny. And what Jesus says, that's an unworthy form of denial, to deny that you have a body, to deny that you have issues, to deny that the world is hard. That's an unworthy form of denial. Really accept that, yeah, that's the way the world is. And then just do what you need to do. And if it was, to talk to somebody, if it was to take a pill or smoke a joint, or whatever it is that at the moment seemed to help, then that's what you do. And uh so the, until you're ready to get to that actual cause, and face it, and recognize that my demons are your demons, and they're all the same demons, and we're not different. Even in that, there's nothing special or different about any of it. And, once you recognize that and move on with your life, you actually can move on with your life. So, anyway, thanks for letting me share. And I think, Kerry will not mind if we go on. In fact, he'll probably be glad if we go on a little bit past our time. So let's continue, and I'll turn it back to you, Michale.
Thank you, Lynn, for that sharing. And yeah, I mean, let food be thy medicine. So food is magic as much as breathing is. And there's on the level of form, there's gut neurotransmitters. They say that your gut is your second brain. So that's why, you want to have nourishing food. And Mother Teresa, when she used to work on the streets in Calcutta, she would first feed the person on the street, but pick them up, take care of on the level of form what she needed to take care of, because the ego is raging. It's so strong. It's crying out in pain. It has pain receptors that it made in the body. All of this to take the peace away so that you can't hear the voice of the Holy Spirit. So when you calm the body down, then you can hear the voice of the Holy Spirit, to where true healing comes, which is from the mind and our mistaken belief in the separation. So yeah, it's a process, and we have to be gentle with ourselves and slow and steady. And you know, it's the a lot of times to lift the veil, the fear is just too great. So we need to go and take the right food, take the right medicine, do the right things to because the ego is got raucous shrieking. It's so loud, and the the on the level of pain, we have pain receptors. I mean, working in the field that I do, it's real on that level of form for them, for all of us that experience that. So before I do the reading on the next paragraph, would anyone like to comment? No? Okay, I'll go ahead and do the reading then on the next paragraph. Any true solution to a problem, regardless of the problem's form, must undo the cause found in our mistaken mind. Healing, whether individual or social, however holy it may seem, that does not have as its ultimate aim the reawakening of the spiritual self, will eventually fail. It will not heal because the guilt of the separation will remain. It has sought to correct the effect, but not the cause. Therefore, when we react to suffering, ours or another's, as reality, we are merely reinforcing the basic error of the separation that gave rise to the suffering in the first place. It is an example of what the Course would term false empathy, joining with another's weakness rather than uniting with his strength. To emphasize does does not mean to join in suffering, for that is what you must refuse to understand. That is the ego's interpretation of empathy, and is always used to form a special relationship in which the suffering is shared. The ego always emphasizes to weaken, and to weaken is always to attack. And that comes from the text, chapter 16, the forgiveness of illusions and true empathy. So it's, you can bring up Mother Teresa's work, and that, she helped them on the level of form and on their suffering. And then, but here it says, it will not heal because the guilt of the separation will remain. So you have to go to the mind. So you can study on the level of form all the magic things which are good, on healing the body on the physical form, but the bottom line is you have to go to the mind. So you have to take the next step. So it's a process, and you calm it down. So you calm the fire down of where the suffering is coming from. So you calm it down, and then you can go to the gentle waters of healing, which wash away that suffering which is coming from the unhealed mind, and you have to look at it. So would anyone like to comment on this? No? Okay. I'll go ahead then and read the next paragraph. It is uniting with someone's form of ego darkness rather than with the light of spirit that always shines. Rather, we should practice true empathy, identifying with another's richness and strength, the light of heaven, rather than with one's poverty and weakness, the darkness of the ego. And this reminds me because I used to go to Tijuana when I lived in California with a group from Tara Singh's group, and we used to work with the Sisters of Mother Teresa, and the sisters taught us to, which would be looking for the Christ within each person. So you're joining with your brother, and that we would look for Jesus. They would have us look for Jesus, the face of Jesus within each person that we were serving in the homeless, or we found people that were going through the trash cans, and we would bring them in, and it was a beautiful experience. I could, I know Tara Singh was raised as being a Sikh, and they do service. They do the feeding. That's a big part of the Sikhs. Part of their religion is to do service. So he was really into service. So he was definitely united with Mother Teresa's work, and then he got us joined with that. And then he did give her the Course in Miracles, too. So, which was a wonderful experience. But that was a wonderful experience to actually bring it into application and to see the Christ in our brother who was a stranger. And the love was there, the kindness was there. So through that kindness, you know, and as we studied before in Ken's book, the kindness of the healing power of kindness. And through that kindness and seeing the Christ in your brother, or as Mother Teresa's sisters would see Jesus in the brother, it's through that kindness then that you can settle, the body starts to settle down, the ruckus shrieking of the ego starts to settle down, and then you can come to where true empathy is, whereas it's coming, the unhealed healer is coming from the mind. So then we can look at that. So would anyone like to comment on this? I see Mickey's hand is up, so please go ahead, Mickey.
Yeah, I got a little movie reel playing in my head of the difference between um, uniting with someone in the form of the ego's darkness. If someone came to us and said, oh my God, I had such a horrible childhood. They told me all these horrible things about myself. And and internally, even if we're saying, oh my God, that that's awful. That should never have happened to you. That's making it real. As opposed to, can we see the Christ in everyone, in you especially, but also in the person who said those horrible things? That they're suffering. I've told stories to people about what I went through as a child with having my my blessed mother as a mother, and some of the incredibly horrible things that she said to me. And and the moment of healing came when I could see, and this was long after her death, when I could see the Christ in her and see the suffering that she had been through, and the what she her famous battle cry was, I deserve better than this. I deserve better children. I deserved a better husband. She was so beleaguered that she could not give. There was nothing in her to give. And the finally one day when I saw how incredibly beleaguered and suffering she had been in her life, that I can really forgive. And that's in the healing. And so when we see somebody who's suffering, be it from disease or depression or um, illness or or just not being able to take care of themselves, rather than say, oh my God, you poor thing, we can look at them and say, I see the Christ shining out of you, and there is much more inside you than you can believe right now. That's when we're truly being helpful. And we can go through the motions of feeding them or comforting them, or if we're a doctor, we can give them medicine or whatever is going through. But if we do that with the knowledge that the strength of Christ is in them, and we can see how incredibly strong and powerful they really are, that's when we're really being helpful. Thanks.
Thank you for that. Thank you for that, Mickey. And yeah, that's so true. I mean, and that's where Ken brought that up too in in the beginnings of the course, where he had some, course students, they didn't understand it, that it's to be kind, that yes, it's all an illusion, but none of us were not there yet. We still believe in separation. So when we experience sickness or depression or fear or anxiety or any of that, it's best to be kind to the person, to help them on the level of form, like you brought up. The doctor may have to give the medicine. Food is medicine. So you there was a book out. uh, it was I think the name of it was Chicken Soup for the Soul. Well, it's not chicken soup for the soul, right? Because it's chicken soup for the body. But chicken soup is very healing. It's very healing to the body on a physical level. And in a lot of Chinese medicine, there's you eat according to the seasons. And so because the body, through adaptation, that's where it helps to get it well. And then you can go, then we can look into the mind. And that's where I love how Ken brought that up, that you have to go to the mind for true healing, to it, otherwise it'll fail. So we can't just stay on the level of form. So because yeah, the body is an illusion. So that was really nice what you said, Mickey. Thank you for your sharing. So would anyone else like to comment? No? Okay, so I'll go ahead and read the next paragraph. Therefore, it is not injustice, evil, or sin that is the problem we wish to correct. It is the error of separation. If we believe in the reality of suffering, we must believe that someone or something has brought it about, and that this someone must be punished for his crime or wrongdoing. Thus, the world outside of good and evil mirrors the world we believe is inside us, separated and conflicted. So, as I brought up earlier, I mean, this reminds me right here of what happened to Marvin Gaye, and with his father, shooting his own son. Somebody that you're supposed to love unconditionally, and he believed that someone has brought this about and that they have to be punished. So he was going to punish Marvin Gaye on the level of form he did. But that was their experience. That was their classroom of forgiveness, because everything here on the level of form is about forgiveness. It's all about forgiveness, because forgiveness is what brings us, it's the closest thing to love on the planet. So just reminded me of that, because he really had a beautiful voice, and I still to today enjoy hearing his music. So would anyone like to comment on this paragraph?
I'm going to comment on what you said. That was my classroom too, because I found myself hating the father. I mean, it was I had a visceral experience when that happened, and well, that's a story for another time. But I found myself hating that man and hating that man. It was horrible, the feeling that I felt as a result of that. And then, the whole court thing and him, because he had a brain tumor, they let it go, and me believing that, they only let that go because Marvin Gaye, was a drug user. But all it was a classroom for me. When I was finally able to let that go, holding on to what wasn't there anymore. It wasn't helping Marvin. It wasn't helping the father. It wasn't hurting the father. It was only hurting me. I'm glad you brought that up, because even as you were saying it, I says, yeah, the day before his 44th birthday. I mean, I had a moment even when you said that. And I had to remember, wait, hold on, and I had to keep listening to you. And remember, it's a classroom. It's my classroom. And for me to think of it as unfair or this, that, all of that, the course reminds us to, to beware. The only time in the course that the word beware is in the course, of perceiving yourself as unfairly, or anybody as unfairly treated. And that made such a difference to me, being able to finally let that go and accept that it was just pain all the way around. And everybody was expressing a call for love. And ultimately, him shooting his son, was his. I'm complete.
Thank you, Zoma, for that. Yeah, and I mean, we don't know. It was all a call for love. It was their classroom, and it was their whole family and friend, actually, in the world that loved Marvin Gaye, and his music continues. And we don't know, too, on the level of form of his dad had a brain tumor, of what that was causing, for him maybe not even to be able to process his thoughts properly. So, yeah, we have to forgive. We have to forgive, and we have to let it go. And the script is already written, right? Ken says we're actually just really watching reruns because time isn't linear. So we're actually just watching reruns, even with that experience with Marvin Gaye. So would anyone else like to comment about this paragraph, and that the ego wants someone to be punished for the crime of their wrongdoing?
Yeah, I was trying.
Go ahead.
I pushed you're supposed to be able to push the space button and be able to talk, but space bar, but apparently not, because I just moved to somewhere where we weren't. So I'll find that place in the book again. But I think it's right here. Because we just read about true empathy. But it, in essence, we all have a brain tumor. In essence, we're all drunk. In essence, we're all every single one of us is we got something that ain't working right, that's running the show here. And whatever you want to call it, it doesn't really matter. It is the ego world. And it's so funny, Zoma, because first thing I thought, you know I knew you worked at the post office, and I thought, do you have Marvin stamps? Because I got the Marvin Gaye stamps when they came out. And I have the whole set with the album cover thing and everything. And then someone didn't recognize that they were my special stamps, and so they used them. And then I realized, well, if I really love somebody, if I send them a card, I can put a Marvin on there. I realized that was that's Marvin Gaye has been like an incredible symbol to me for a very long time, since what's going on. And so that it's so very funny. We can look at everyone that way, though. We can look at every single person and say, Be kind. Everyone here is fighting a hard battle, and everyone here has something that seems inescapable to them. Everyone here is living in a place where they think that the next moment can bring outrageous terror. We're all in that world. And it's only when we disengage from that world and recognize that we're not really there. I'm not really in that world. That is a big old story, and it's a big old it's massive, and there's so many things about it, but it's still a story, and it has nothing to do with the truth of what I am or the person that I am. And once I realized that, then I realized everything that Jesus was saying in the course made sense then. Everything in the world that Jesus says in the course made sense at that point. And you know, I like I said, I used to be terribly depressed. Now I can't even remember why. I can't even conjure up that feeling in myself. And I have tried to conjure that feeling back up in myself, looking at things that were depressing, looking at things that were sad, thinking about my children dying, thinking about, all that kind of stuff. And every time, it might catch me for a moment, but then I like, aha, I see it. I see it. I see it. I'm just doing this to myself because the ego loves to suffer. The ego is in its glory when I am suffering. So it's going to do everything it can to catch my mind, catch my eye, and put me in that place of sadness. And I when I look at that, I think, oh, you poor little thing. Bless your heart. Anyway, that's all I wanted to say. And I'll turn it back to you, Michele.
Thank you for that, Lynn. Yeah, the ego loves suffering. It wants to always point the finger, at somebody else, but really it's an outside picture of an inward condition. So we're at the hour, Lynn, but we just have one last paragraph before we end this on the meaning of injustice and suffering. So is it okay if I go ahead and
Yeah,
read?
go ahead and read it. Yeah, I see Carrie in the Pal Talk room.
Oh,
He's not going to mind that you go over a little bit. So please go ahead, read, and then you can close us out.
okay, thank you. It has been said that there is a crucified, there must be a crucifier if there is suffering. There must be both a victim and a victimizer. Once this perception is established, the inherent unity of the sonship of God is destroyed. Love is seen as divided, and fear, guilt, and separation become the distorted reality of God's kingdom. We cannot forgive what we have first made real. If we perceive suffering as real, we cannot truly forgive its perpetrators. Once this perception of suffering is accorded reality, divisions are set up between victim and persecutor, justice and injustice, oppressed and oppressor, forgiveness, love, and justice have become impossible. So, yeah, there's only the one. The reality is there's only the one. There's only the one mind. There's no division. And as Gloria, Ken's wife, used to say, there's no two-ness. Two-ness doesn't exist, so separation doesn't exist. So Ken was saying we cannot forgive if we have made that separation real. So it's only in the joining with your brother that you can really truly forgive. And so I'll go ahead, and if anyone would like to comment before I read one of Dr. Schuckman's poems here to close it out, please raise your hand. Otherwise, I'll go ahead and read from the gifts of God. So this morning, I've chosen Heaven's Gift. It's on page 80 of the Gifts of God by Helen Schuckman. No one can rob infinity, for when something is taken, angels join their wings and close the space so rapidly it seems to be illusion, unoccurred, undone. No one can take away from everything. Its very wholeness is a guarantee. It is complete forever. There can be no loss left unrestored before it comes. No one can lessen love. It is itself the great restorer. It can but return. All that is taken to itself, it knows. No loss, no limit, and no lessening. Heaven can only give. This is the sign that losing is impossible. It seemed that it was gone, yet angels quickly came and promised they would bring it back to you. Heaven's Gift, Helen Schuckman, The Gifts of God, page 80. Thank you so much for coming. Have a beautiful Friday.
Thank you so much. I just love that poem. So beautiful, and you read it so beautifully. I'm going to go ahead and close off the YouTube. I'll be turning the mic over to Karen.